welcome back to the Secret Passage podcast. I'm your host, Dana.
And I'm Shannon.
We are back with part 2, the Toolbox Killers.
Fun.
Yay!
I can't wait till this is over.
I know, it's so dark.
These
man.
little schlumps.
Yeah. So, just a quick recap of part 1, where we introduced Roy Norris and Lawrence Bittaker and a little bit of their backstory. So even if you haven't heard that, you can go back and listen to part 1 and then come back. But 1979, there was this horrible duo, Bittaker and Norris, who met in prison, became friends, unlikely friends. They really didn't have anything in common, but they became pals after joining forces in a jewelry making class, I guess.
Maybe they made friendship bracelets.
I think it was Bittaker helped Norris make a necklace or something. They became friends, and then they began fantasizing and about what they would do once they were out of prison. And that's when they came up with the idea of outfitting a van to travel all over Southern California and abduct and rape girls for each teenage year. So 13 through 19.
You know, light summer plans.
Yeah. That they would, it's so gross. So Bittaker got out first. He immediately set out on buying the van and constructing it to their specifications. He built a platform bed type thing in the back. I mean, you sort of imagine the 1970s chill van with the shag carpet and the lava lamp, and now just add in torture devices. That was their
mobile torture chamber.
Yes. And then shortly thereafter, Norris got out of prison. They met up and they spent a good amount of time, because Bittaker was ever the kind of math brain, detail-oriented, precise, cold, calculated guy. And Norris was the enthusiastic sidekick, I guess.
The meticulous murderer and the, what would we call him?
The oafish rape enthusiast. Because Norris was very disorganized. He was the opposite of Bittaker that way. Even what got him caught was just how sloppy he was and just how impulsive he was. He would just do these spring attacks, jumping out of the bushes and accosting a woman and just raping her in broad daylight. I mean, he just had no chill
breaks. Yeah.
He didn't plot or plan anything. He was incredibly impulsive. Whereas Bittaker was, he had a high IQ of 138. He got a really high-paying machinist job once he was out of prison. He was making good money. There was really nothing in terms of just anxiety or desperation around meeting his immediate needs. The thing that often drives ex-cons back into, criminal activity is just they're not getting enough. They end up stealing, doing whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like the process of meticulously planning the whole thing was really gratifying to him. Almost on an OCD-ish kind of the ritual of the planning and everything and getting it right and practicing. That was Bittaker's pleasure in it, it seemed like. Right.
And getting away with stuff. I mean, I think that he was a much more kind of arrogant, just he took a lot of he was basically like a craftsman. I mean, he was making things. And so this whole process of seeking out the spot in the San Gabriel Mountains, breaking into the fire road and knowing that was going to be the dump spot, taking photographic kind of evidence of this is where we're going to dump the bodies. This is where the rapes are going to happen. It also then turned out to be the dump spot. Because I I don't know if Bittaker had already decided on his own that murder was the obvious kind of logical conclusion to each of these abductions and rapes and tortures, and that he hadn't communicated that to Norris because it seemed obvious. And then
Yeah.
Norris was like, "Oh, wait a minute. What do you mean we're going to kill them?" And then, Bittaker's like, "Well, duh. They've seen our faces and our van and everything.
Yeah.
We have to." Um, but anyway, so that leads us to up to present. They abducted and murdered, raped, tortured, and murdered 5 girls. Loudmouth Norris was bragging to his ex-con buddy about it. That ex-con buddy, was his name Jackson, was his last name,
Mm-hmm.
was completely freaked out by what Norris was telling him. Norris, what an idiot. Just, yeah, bragging about it, explaining where the dump sites were, what a awesome time that he and Bittaker were having, and that, yeah, that thing you saw in the paper about Lynette Ledford, that was us. So Jackson, who had his own teenage daughters and already was skeeved out by the way that Norris would kind of behave in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
told his parole officer about what was going on. And then his parole officer was like, "Yo, you have got to tell the cops. Like, this is crazy." And so then Jackson went to the police, and the police started following Norris, realized that there was quite a bit that made sense, like Norris's
Mm-hmm.
confessions, and then kind of like the details about these other missing girls. Because keep in mind, as far as they knew, Leah Lamp, Jackie Gilliam, Cindy Schaefer, and Andrea Hall were still considered missing.
Yeah.
And so everything lined up.
But
And
they dumped what's her name's body in the end, and that's how they got busted.
right, Lynette Ledford. They
Yeah.
dumped her in plain view.
I think the friend didn't believe them at first. He kind of was like, "This is bullshit. Like they're not doing this stuff." And then I think when that happened, that's when he was like, "Oh crap! Like they're actually doing what they're saying they're doing." Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Norris would be bragging all the way kind of up to that point, and then it's like, "Wait a minute, here's something that this is scary now." Norris was busted because he had marijuana in plain view in the front seat of his car, which was, allowed the police to go ahead and arrest him, and then Norris negotiated a cushy deal with the police to turn on Bittaker in
Mhm.
exchange for not being sentenced to death.
Mhm. Mm.
Yes. So this leads us to the trial.
I cannot imagine being on that jury.
I can't either. I mean, well, we're going to get to how the jury reacted to the evidence that was presented. It's interesting because Norris pins everything on Bittaker, and then Bittaker, the defense, and it pins everything on Norris. And I am curious. We'll never know exactly how each of these crimes went down. We can only kind of make assumptions based on what we know about Norris and Bittaker as individuals and their priors leading them to prison.
Mhm. Like how much of what he said is true and how
Yeah.
much yeah.
I mean, there's no question. They're both. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're both equally guilty.
Mhm.
But what's interesting, I know we got into this a little bit at the end of last episode, and that is, had they never met, what would have happened? I can kind of predict what would have happened with Norris had he never met Bittaker, or anyone, just became friends with someone like Bittaker. I think that he would have raped again, and then just went through this continued cycle of ending up in prison until he's just dies there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think murder was ever his MO. I think he was just always going to be like a violent serial rapist. Bittaker, interestingly, he seemed more pushed. If he was pushed hard enough, he would react violently,
Mhm.
like stabbing the clerk at the store.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
that wasn't like, "I want to kill this clerk." It was, "You're trying to stop me, I'm going to react by stabbing you." It wasn't a repeated stabbing. He stabbed once. So it wasn't even like this rage-fueled stabbing with intent to kill. It was, "I'm gonna stop you by
It was like
stabbing you."
self-preservation, kinda, like
Kind of,
yeah,
right.
like, "I don't wanna get caught. You're in my way."
And then Tracy, the 19-year-old that he befriended when he was living in the motel, they were arguing, 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 and then Bittaker pulled out a gun and was like, "The only reason why I haven't killed you is because you're pregnant."
Yep.
So it was like that, "I'm angry, so I'm going to do this." It wasn't a bloodlust with Bittaker, it was a an ability to regulate his moods and reaction, like a reaction, a physical reaction.
Yep.
Definitely a sadist, because I think he enjoyed scaring Tracy. I think for him, it was like a real power thing. I think
Yeah.
he was really preoccupied with power, which is why he chose to live in the motel where even though he had more money, a lot more money, he could have lived in a normal apartment or house. He chose to live in like a seedy rundown motel where there were going to be lower income people and kids that don't have a lot of money so that he could have control and lord control over them. They want drugs, they come to him. They want alcohol, they come to him. He has some control over what they do and that he's sought after.
Right. I have this weird take on him, and I'm probably full of shit. Like forensic psychologists, feel free to pile on here, but like, I feel like he's really hyper focused on relationships. Like, the friendship is central, and he does that with Laura Brand in the end. I think he has a hard time regulating. He's a sadist, but I think that what drove him was that sense of like, I'm needed, I'm looked up to, I'm helping. I'm like a like he it's weird. It's like I could see him potentially blending in like BTK if he wasn't so explosive and could keep it together a little more. I hadn't gotten into the system so early, and I feel like if he hadn't met Norris, that really shaped him more than
It,
anything, the
right.
relationship. Like, what it meant to them together, what his role like, it's to so dependent. Like, I imagine him some aspect of what he was getting out of these murders and the torture and everything was what was shared between him and Norris. Norris seemed more focused on getting, the act itself and like less on the relationship.
Oh, no, it was even in his profile. Like,
Oh
his
yeah.
original profile was that he was, I mean, he diverted from it. I mean, I know that happens though, but in general, that he was somebody that would tend to be more isolated and more like
Yeah.
be less relational. But and that was the thing that was sort of like surprising to some of the other I guess psychologists and stuff, was that he, in the end, he did have friendships because he was bragging to Jackson, and they had their like buddy that was in the prison, that they all fantasized about this, but that guy was still stuck in prison. And then of course his relationship with Bittaker, he did seem to have, but I mean, this was all relationships centered around what his focus was. So maybe that's the thing, is he didn't know how to relate to people in other ways. It had to be about this specific thing, like this
Yeah.
this this fantasy of his.
Like, I think Bittaker got kind of enlisted and willingly joined, but because of the relationship, not because he wanted to go. He had his own individual thing brewing about, I want to drive around and murder people. Like, I didn't hear that anywhere. It fully felt like he was so impressionable. He always seemed to me to be like this needy little orphan kid. Like, that's what he was, so mad at his mom. He was total grievance baby about like nobody wanting him. It just feels like that's all that really mattered. Like, the fact that he went so far with Norris. the way his sweetness kind of shows up, which is really odd, in like helping the people in the hotel and helping Norris and then helping Laura Brand. Like you see these hints of like his humanity in there, right? And then it coexists with this sort of sadistic, cruel, you know, part. But I really see his vulnerability so much more than I see Roy Norris's. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the scary thing, is that Bittaker was able to, I go back to the scorpion and the frog. I don't
Hmm.
doubt that Bittaker, I mean, there's evidence of it. We know he was incredibly helpful
Yeah.
with that girl Tracy, making sure she had what she needed, like overhearing her in distress, and
Hmm.
rather than exploiting that, like, if you do this for me, I'll give you
Right.
money for your doctor's appointments. Like, there were plenty of opportunities to toy with her and use her and exploit her, but he didn't. He said, "I'll help you if you need." He gave her, and he was true to his word. He took her on appointments for her prenatal visits. He made sure she had what she needed, let her know that if she needed anything. And in her interview, there was never any indication from her that he was attempting anything and
Mm-mm.
leveraging the money and
No, he
help and
was
all of that. He was sincere. He also fucking pulled a gun on her and
totally.
threatened to kill her and told her
Yeah,
that the only reason why she was alive was because she was pregnant. And
totally.
that's where I get into like that whole scorpion and the frog thing. It's like
Watch out.
it's inevitable. If you see that sweetness, you see the vulnerability, whether it's manufactured for purposes of manipulation, whether it's sincere, whether it's a mix of both, sooner or later you're probably going to end up dead.
Well, the context only has to shift a tiny bit, right? Like
Just a tiny
just a
bit.
tiny bit. He has to get a little mad. He has to get a
Yeah.
little frustrated. Okay, so as long as we're on the subject, I have to tell you a really funny story because I was
Okay.
talking to Tim about how Tim listens to our episodes and he's always giving me like things. If you want to talk about this, you can talk about this. He has a funny life. I mean, he has so many funny stories. So, anyways, we are talking about how they met in the jewelry making class and how he's like, God, it's so weird that they just sat around in prison, just fantasizing. Because prison's supposed to be rehabilitative. We all know it's not, but like, or can be for some people. But
Right.
he's like, they're just sitting around planning all the bad shit they're going to do when they get out. He's all, it kind of reminds me of, so when he was in high school, he was in the parking lot smoking a joint before class. And Officer Bacon, which is an unfortunate name for a
Such a
police.
bad man. Change your name if you're going to go into law enforcement.
Tim said he was like the service officer at the school. And this was like uni in LA. So he gets busted by Officer Bacon. And so then he has to go to this thing called the Impact program. So
Is it
Impact
like a
program,
juvenile program or?
it's at school. Yeah, it's where all the
Okay.
delinquent kids go, and like they have a teacher who's an ex-addict, and he's like, she was so cool. She just let us sit there and talk. And he's like, but what we would talk about is like what kind of weed we were smoking and how we were going to go home and smoke that weed tonight. And he said Judge Reinhold came to their class one time and talked about how he's like, if you've ever seen me in a movie, if you've seen me in any role I've ever been in, you can just know that I was like high out of my mind on cocaine and had drank a six pack before that scene. And Tim said it was really funny just talking to him. And yeah.
I'm sorry, but so Jay and I will just sometimes blurt out lines from Fast Times,
Uh
and
huh.
one of them is, "I hope you had a hell of a piss, Arnold."
He was high and drunk.
Yeah, yeah, he's so funny. I love that. And
So LA.
all right, Hamilton, Spicoli. Yeah, but yeah. So with Bittaker and Norris, I mean, here's the thing too. Here's the another way to look at this is, like Bittaker's arguing with this pregnant 19-year-old girl, Tracy, that he had, promised to help, and he did. He did help her, but he has no patience for her. Keep in
No.
mind, she's pregnant, dude. As I can tell you, the hormones, her being argumentative, like being moody, all of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what their argument was about, but it's just, if you've got this vulnerable pregnant teenager and you're not giving her any grace because she's pissing you off,
Yeah.
That is somebody that, like,
Rage monster.
he's just gonna rage out. But that said, all of his priors all of his priors were not violent except for that stabbing, which was more like, had the shopkeeper not stopped him, he wasn't gonna stab anybody, right? He was just gonna leave with the steak that he could totally have afforded to buy.
Yeah.
He just
Don't get
wanted to
between
steal
a
it.
man and his steak, man.
He just wanted to steal just to steal.
Yeah.
Like, that was his like, that was the extent of his, like, I guess, antisocial personality disorders. He was the guy that wanted to break into people's homes. He wanted to steal. He wanted to spy on people. He just wanted to commit crimes, like these types of crimes. But
Mhm.
but he was stopped, and then he reacted. So, but everything that had gotten him into jail up to that point were nonviolent offenses. And then after he meets Norris, it becomes this thing of let's kidnap, torture, and rape. And then for
Mm.
Norris, who had never killed anybody, had never even tried to kill anybody,
Mhm.
and didn't really want to in that moment either, Bittaker's like, we got to now. We
Yeah.
have to. It reminds me so much of Paul Bernardo and Karen Homolka, or not Carla
Yes.
Homolka, the Barbie and Ken killers from Canada, where Paul Bernardo was a serial rapist. Carla she'd never done anything illegal that
Yeah.
we know of. And then they meet, and she introduces this idea of let's kill them. And so now you've got a girl who she had shown some sociopathic traits
Yeah.
before. She hadn't
Yep.
killed anybody, but it was that meeting, that combination of the two. I mean, it resulted in one of the worst crimes. I mean, it's
God, you know what's funny? I had a dream about all this recently.
about
I mean,
Carla Homolka and Paul
well,
Bernardo, or
just this whole okay, if you talk about the folie à deux thing,
right.
like getting pulled into some kind of thing and then finding yourself in the middle of it and then making decisions in the middle of it that you wouldn't normally ever make. And the dream was I was involved in a heist. I was going to steal $1 million with someone. I had my Volkswagen Bug in it too. And at one point there were like all these people in it. And I was like, we're going to crash. But anyway, at a certain point in the dream, I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is so wrong. I'm going to get into so much trouble. There's no turning back now. I just have to do it. And I can imagine it logically, or so out of self-preservation, you would want to like kill the victim, but also out of like a sort of undoing. Like if there's no person left, I didn't do it. Like it's gone. It's ended. Like that's I could see why like Carla Homolka, especially because she was partners with him and there was a sexual aspect to it, that eliminating the victim would be a relief for her on multiple fronts, right? Like I won't get caught, there's no evidence. And this person who has been in my relationship essentially is gone. But there is, I think, in my dream, this self preservation thing took over so quickly, and it felt so. I mean, I just think we do that. I just think we do. It's rare for someone not to like. Remember the girls that the flood that happened at that girls' camp.
Yes.
One of the nurses who just left them behind and didn't go save them.
Yeah.
Just yeah, I think didn't she just get prosecuted or something? Something happened.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I mean, I don't know how much control we have over that behavior when we're in that level of threat. And it doesn't, it looks cowardly, it looks awful, but like, I think we have a strong self preservation. Some people run into the fire and some people don't, I guess. And so it just made me think about all that, and how even maybe like a somewhat like sane person who finds themselves like I'm thinking about gangs and gang initiations and stuff like that and how we get dragged into these things and then we find ourselves doing things that we would never otherwise do, because it's just this decision in the moment, like me or you. So anyway.
Well, a lot of that with gangs too, I mean, it's cultural, and
Hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking of like the traditional gangs where you are initiated in, and
Hmm.
it becomes like this like brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever.
Hmm.
That's your family. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think there's a strong cultural component. There's also the whole idea of just adapting.
Yeah.
You have to adapt, and there is survival attached to that as well.
Yeah.
And so with Bittaker and Norris, I do think, and I think it's interesting you bring that up because I see it for sure. When Norris had been complaining to Bittaker about how, he had gotten busted, when he attacked the woman and then was caught and stuff, that Bittaker had kind of said, like, well, we got to make sure that doesn't happen to you again. And so
Mhm.
then here it comes Bittaker being like, kind of like you do with Tracy here. I'll help you. I'll I'll
Yes.
I'll I'll help you. I'll make sure that doesn't happen to you again.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you can rely on me. What does he do? He gets out of prison immediately. He's the one that gets the van.
Yep.
He's the one that outfits the van. He's the one that strategizes because he has that.
Yep.
So he has all the skills for that. And then there's Norris who just has no impulse control and all of that. And so I do think that it really is this gross like combining of
Yeah.
gross proclivities that like joined forces.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, Bittaker, it's interesting as you were saying that. I was thinking, for me with Bittaker, it feels like he's motivated. Like these things give him self worth because of the relational aspect. Norris just seems like this bumbling, impulsive rapist, right? He's not like so concerned about this thing they're doing together and whatever. It's just like, I'm going to go do this thing and not think 10 steps ahead and just be
He's
clean.
he's a he's a far
Mhm.
he's a far less interesting subject than
Yeah.
Bittaker. Bittaker has, and I think it's probably due in part to his higher IQ. He's more complex. He's a complex thinker,
Yeah.
whereas Norris just really seems ruled by his id.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
he's pretty straightforward, and I probably saw Bittaker as a facilitator and
Yeah.
not as a friend.
Did you listen to that consult episode that I mentioned yesterday?
I didn't get a chance to listen to it
You're
yet.
gonna love it. So
Okay,
they talk a lot about the difference between lack of empathy and sadism and how you can have lack of empathy and no sadism. But then they talk about just a lot of stuff around rehabilitation and how like aging it was super impactful for some
right,
people. Like I could see Norris being a person where he just gets old and tired and stops doing what he's doing.
right.
And Bittaker, though, is so much more complex in a way that I don't think age. He liked to play games. I think he liked to, right? He liked attention. I don't know that he changed that much with age.
It doesn't seem like it. I mean,
Yeah.
he seemed pretty spry up until the end. And when we get to talking about Laura Brand, we'll
Hmm.
see that.
Hmm.
He really needed human interaction and contact. He needed to, he needed that. Again, back to the high IQ, he's somebody that his brain has to keep working. He's somebody that's going to go stir crazy if he's not able to work on things mentally.
Hmm.
Whether it's building, putting things together, playing games, whatever. He's probably somebody that desperately needed to keep his mind active and exercising. Norris just like he provided nothing to Laura Brand.
You know that saying, if you want to see your future, look at your friends. Like this really makes me think about that. Like had Bittaker had a good influence that he was compelling to him, I could imagine him planning something totally different for when he gets out of prison. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know that. I think again it
Mhm.
was the whole killing spree
Mhm.
in the summer of 1979 in LA. That was only ever going to be a duo. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
only gonna that was never gonna happen with Bittaker alone, it was never gonna happen with Norris alone. Bittaker probably just would have gotten out of prison, gotten his machinist job, toiled along, and then, had have like a bad reaction to something, maybe accident assault somebody again. He was gonna fly off the
Yeah,
handle.
yeah,
That's he didn't know how to regulate himself. He was gonna probably just have a life in and out of jail.
yeah,
But for comparatively minor kind of infractions.
yeah, meat theft.
Yeah, stealing, attacking somebody, like if he was, working at an auto shop, let's say, and a client argues with him, he's going to attack them. Like that. That was that was going to be probably like his future. Nothing this horrifying and grotesque. And then Norris was going to be raping and attacking until he got arrested again. Together, it's one of the worst fucking horrible crimes
I
in
know.
history.
It really is. It's to me, it's the top for me.
Yeah, it is so depraved and so sick, and I struggle. And this is the thing we'll get into it now.
Mhm.
So now trial. So now here we've got Bittaker, who's probably like, "What? Norris fucking turned on me?"
Ooh, the betrayal.
Yeah,
That probably really got him.
I'm sure it felt like yet again someone else that turned
Mommy
their back
doesn't
on
love
him.
me.
Yeah. So at trial, the case was prosecuted by Stephen Kay. We talked about in the last episode. He's the same prosecutor who had handled the Manson murders 10 years prior. And the evidence was overwhelming. You've got the customized van, Murder Mac, the toolbox full of their instruments of torture, which again were things like pliers, an ice pick, a sledgehammer, like all of these things. Tons of Polaroid photos showing the victims in degrading acts.
Ah,
And then finally, the horrifying audio recording of Lynette Ledford, their final victim, who there was a 17-minute recording of her being horribly, horribly tortured and taunted. And Bittaker just sat there. And this is the thing. So they played the audio recording at trial. And there's actually, you can find it on YouTube. You can hear some of the audio as because there's like news crews outside of the courtroom, and you can hear in the distant like Lynette Ledford screaming, and you can see jurors rushing
ugh.
out, crying, or like on the verge of vomiting.
Hmm.
While the tape was being played, Bittaker sat there, and you can see pictures, and he's just kind of smiling the way that like you would smile at a fond memory.
Like he was reminiscing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oof.
like there's a picture and he's like this, he's like,
Ugh.
and that's where I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, that is a sadistic motherfucker. That guy has no remorse.
Mm-mm.
He has no remorse. He feels
Mm.
it's not even like that he didn't feel anything, because that's very common. We'll see in trial footage and stuff. I mean, you see it in the Gabriel Fernandez case. You see Osario just sitting there staring without any expression. That's usually what you see from the perpetrator, is just like they'll either be like crying crocodile tears,
Mhm.
or they'll just have no reaction, almost like they've just gone completely blank.
Yeah.
And with Bittaker, if you saw the picture of him, you would think that what he's looking at is like some adorable puppies,
Oh God. Yeah.
an old family photograph. But no, he's listening to she was 16, I believe, Lynette Ledford. Yeah, she was 16. 16-year-old girl being tortured at your hand, and your voice is on there too, like taunting her, making fun of her, calling her names, telling her terrible things. And his smile is what is where I'm like, no, that man is broken. That man is really fucking broken.
Oof.
Yeah. So that sealed the deal. So Shannon, we have talked about this before, because we talked about this in both the Athena Strand case, where Athena's the little girl that was tortured and murdered in, I believe it was 2022, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was 2022, and the sentencing trial just finished last month. But there was a recording played. It was the audio of Athena being tortured and killed
Mm.
by Tanner Horner. And you and I had talked about, because the judge gave instructions to the jury. He's like, this is going to be really awful. You can stay, or
Mm-hmm.
if this is going to be something that is just too much for you, you can leave, but you're going to have to leave now. And so some jurors stayed and some left. And the same was said basically to in the Bittaker trial.
Mhm.
And so the question is, would you have stayed,
Mm.
Shannon,
Uh,
or would you have left?
I probably would have tried to stay, and I probably would have had to leave. I read the transcript of this one, and it was awful. I wish I never did. It's different to hear a summary than it is to see the play-by-play and to feel. I mean, I think it's important, we have to know what happened. Does everybody have to know exactly what happened though? That's
I think there's
yeah.
some people that I think
Mhm.
it can, depending
Mhm.
on if they're, what kind of uh,
Constitution.
yeah, what
I mean,
kind of
I
a
can
constitution they have. But yeah, it's hard.
Mhm.
And here's the thing: it's hard to know.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what you would do. I remember. I mean, I don't know if this is really comparable. Kind of is. What the like sometimes you can think that you would know what you would do
Yeah.
until it happens, and then
Yeah.
either you see it through or you don't.
Yeah. I drove past a van yesterday because we have, there's a lot coming out about what's going on with animals in LA.
Yeah.
Um, and so I see it all the time in Oakland. And like, I just looked into this van and there was a dog in there. And I was like, I can't, I went immediately to this case, just being trapped in a situation where you have no power to get out of it. And all kinds of horrible things can happen. I don't, I just, that is something that is so terrifying to think of that door closing. Whenever we watch horror movies, it's like that moment that the door latches and you're like, I think that's what was the awful thing about it is just hearing her reading about her being in captivity with these two and they could do whatever they wanted to her. And that she was aware and awake the whole time of what was, and maybe hopefully she had the endorphins and the protections that our mind sometimes provides us, a
She would
buffer.
have had to have gone
I
into
hope.
shock.
I
I
fucking
mean,
hope so.
I think about, like, when I was a lifeguard and, we were, learning rescue, obviously CPR and, like,
Hmm.
first aid and all this kinda stuff, and one of the things that we learned about was, like, recognizing shock when a victim has gone into shock, because obviously, like, it's, the drowning isn't the only thing you have to worry about with accidents around a pool. So we had to learn about all kinds of things, like
Mm,
bee stings, and if somebody like
mm.
dove into the shallow end and broke their neck, or something is broken, or you have to splint something. So you think about
Wow.
like splinting like an arm or a leg,
Hmm.
and that sometimes these people will go into shock. And I'm like, if somebody's going to go into shock over, and it could be like something gross, like, the tibia is like pointing through broken through the skin or something like that. I mean, totally understandable going into shock. But if that is making somebody go into shock, then surely this would result in, I mean, just even the first couple things that were done to Lynette had to have
God,
at
here's the
least.
I don't know. My dad has complex regional pain syndrome, which they've measured the pain that is, and it's the highest level of pain a person can feel. And pain is a perception, which is so interesting to me. So there's all there's this therapy out now that's called pain reprocessing therapy that actually helps people retrain their brains to how they respond to pain. So my dad doesn't go into shock. So he just lives. Like right now, he has a flare. He can't get out of bed. He's just living in this excruciating state of pain that even like morphine, like even opiates don't help. And so I would hope that if you have a brutal accident like a compound fracture or somebody's torturing you, that somehow you can unhook. There's something that floods in. But in his case, no. So I've had, to live the last decade of my life just knowing my dad's in like a torturous amount of pain. It's awful.
Because it's a syndrome,
Yeah.
though, he's had to, like, his threshold is increased,
I
right? Like,
know.
that's how he's able to just live through it.
I don't know.
Is so
People
right?
kill themselves. I mean, basically,
Sure.
it's called the suicide disease because people just kill themselves because they can't handle the pain anymore, and it keeps coming and it migrates and it gets. And some people amputate their limbs. I don't know how he does it, honestly. I mean, I don't know. I would probably end my life.
Right.
because or I would try everything and then end my life, because there's no way out, and there's nothing that helps. Nothing. Like, unless you just knock yourself out. And even then you can, you know, so I don't know what the difference is. And I mean, because I've heard anecdotally that if you do get really, really, like in a car accident or whatever, people lose their memory. That's got to be different from like a neurological disorder.
Well, sure.
But
And
yeah,
and with Lynette, this was very sudden. This
yeah,
was like a this attack on her,
hmm,
and then of course there's the terror. So
yes,
there's a lot of different ways, and I guess I guess what I'm trying to get at is
mm,
I'm hoping that her screams in distress were more of a reaction to the terror than the
yes,
actual physical. And then of course I
ah,
mean, we can get into the whole thing of like, but what's worse actually, the terror or the
right.
but I'm just, I guess it's always that hope that it's just a physiological response to what's happening, and not that she was feeling suffering like each horrible thing that was done. I don't know, but
That's over now, at least. I mean, you know that whatever's happening, she's not
it's
suffering
done.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. um I'm with you. I would try to stay. Whether I could sit through it, I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, it might be a thing where I sit, I take in as much as I can, and then I plug my ears, and then
Yeah.
just try to check back
Yeah.
here and there, like, but there is that thing of like, this young girl went through this, and I don't even though she's at that point, it had been months, a couple months later, because I think that a couple years later, I think, because yeah, the trial was in 81,
Yeah.
and what happened to her was in 79. But there is that thing of like, someone's got to be with her through this, even though it already
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
It's like,
It means something, right? To watch it and to be there for it and to, right?
yeah,
We haven't said this on the podcast, but I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, I just hope all the family members and victims of and family members of the victims understand that, like I think the whole true crime movement in general, and us specifically, are just, we are there, like it's like we're there with them, totally, like holding them in our hearts and like holding their hand. That's what I feel like we're doing when we talk about this stuff, and when we really sit with it, is like, you're not alone with this insane thing that had the, like, I can't imagine this happening to somebody that I know and love. Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, that's the thing with like Crime Con and stuff, is that there are so many victims' families will go, and there's a lot of stuff that through the community that has enabled them to do more, a lot of support for the victims' families, and for the research and stuff, and like, with like Jean Benet Ramsey's father goes to Crime Con and stuff. But yeah, that's you're right. It's I can't imagine. I think about Andrea Hall's family. They still don't know where her remains are, as part of the, during the investigation and everything like that. I believe it was Norris, I think, that led the police to I guess the dump spot in the San Gabriel Mountains, and they were able to find Cindy Schaefer, I believe, right? Yeah, they found Cindy Schaefer, and then they found,
Lynette Ledford, because she was,
she was, yeah, like dumped on out in Sunland. But there was Jackie Gilliam and Leah Lamp. Did they only find one of them, or was it both of them?
oh, I think they found,
Because the ice pick was embedded in her skull. Yeah. But Andrea Hall was, there's a lot of wildlife out there, and then of course just weather. So they never found her. But moving forward, Bittaker was sentenced to death, and Norris was given life, and Bittaker died in.
her.
I can find it.
I learned something about death row. You can't work. You can't do any of the stuff like go work in the prison, apparently.
Right. That makes sense.
Mhm.
I guess, right? Because
Mhm.
your crimes are so horrible that you can't really be entrusted with anything. I guess I don't. I'm just making that up. I have no idea.
Yeah, you don't want him making the food, the prison
Yeah. Yeah.
food.
Exactly. So Bittaker died December 13th of 2019. He died on death row. He was not executed. He died, I guess, of natural causes, really. He was 79. Norris died a couple months after. He died in February of 2020.
Wow. He was at San Quentin, right?
Bittaker was at San Quentin.
Every time I drive past San Quentin, I remember this time I was driving with one of my boyfriends and we were like, let's go to the store at San Quentin and get a little t-shirt for our nephew. And we went and it was just past close. It was the inmates actually run the store. It was like little after closing time. And we went in there and they're all, oh, okay, we'll stay open for you. I'm like, this is what got you put in the slammer, boys. Not obeying the rules.
Yeah. So one of the most interesting parts of this case is the criminologist Laura Brand, who over the course of a few years visited Bittaker and Norris. She was working on a book, and the book comes out. It comes out later this month, June 25th.
Ooh. Do you know the title? I can look it
I
up.
believe I believe it is No God Only Devils,
Oh, wow.
I think, or
Okay.
Only Devils. This is about her kind of relationship and trying to understand. It's mostly Bittaker. Norris gave her a zip. He didn't want to talk. He had nothing to say. Bittaker had turned down several requests to speak to her.
Mm,
And then, and she was very persistent. And then finally, he kind of gave in.
mm.
And then they ended up with this curious kind of friendship where she would come visit him on death row and talk to him and ask him all kinds of questions
Mm.
about, the how, the why, all of this. What's really interesting, and you see her in the documentary called The Toolbox Killer, because it's really just about Bittaker, because
So
again, Norris
good.
gave her nothing. It's an excellent documentary. There's a former forensic pathologist, FBI profiler, really did not like. She
Yeah.
just thought the whole idea of Laura Brandt going to the prison, and especially going pregnant, because Laura ended up going when she was very pretty far along in her pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this former FBI profiler was just like, yeah, no, he is manipulating her. He is, devious, diabolical. All this tenderness that he is exhibiting is just manufactured for her benefit. It's reminiscent of like when Anne Rule at first was convinced of Ted Bundy's innocence because they had been friends. They had worked at the rape crisis center together, like
Yeah.
long before everything. So that when he was thrown in jail, she absolutely believed he was innocent. And then
God.
she kept bringing him like cigarettes and whatever he needed and going to visit him. And then it's like there's the dawning realization that it's looking like he's guilty. And then when she was no longer useful to him, he just cut it off. He had nothing to say. But like all the other stuff, and you know me, we're friends, like that kind of shit. So it's interesting because I don't think there's any point where Laura Brand, she doesn't, it'll be so interesting to read her book, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there's any point at which she indicates that he is truly sincere, because
Yeah.
there's no way to know. All you can do is observe his behaviors.
Yeah. She
And
seemed to have her head on straight about it. Yeah.
you see her crying about the victims. Like
Yeah.
I don't think she has any illusions about what happened, but at the same time, because she's human, because she's a human being and because she has empathy, I think it's probably hard not to find him charming when he's being charming, not to be touched by anything kind he might say.
Because it could be, in a way, it's real. Like, this is humans. He's a human being. And, like, some humans are, in certain contexts, are great. And then other contexts, are assholes. And his is just more extreme. I have
Right.
no doubt. Like, I'm sure, even a sadist can be, like, nice sometimes and
Sure.
loving and so I think she saw his humanity. And I think it's interesting. That conversation on the console is so good. It's about this woman she worked in California. She was did like evaluations to see if people should
Mhm.
be able to be released. And she just wrote a book. I just got it. Evil at Our Table is the title. I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure.
But so the host of the consult is a behavior analyst person for the FBI, and this person was more of a forensic psychologist, which is totally different.
Right.
And this person was saying, the person who wrote the book, you could hear the difference in their perspectives and how much more sort of hopeless or not holding the humanity of the person that the consult host was. I mean, she definitely does, but she was just like, lock him up and throw away the key. Like, she was like that other woman in the
Right.
Laura Brand documentary. But the psychologist woman was saying, she's like, these are human beings that have done some things, and they're still human. They're human. They're just like us. And so I think that's a hard thing to hold on to, but I think Laura Brand really did hold on to that despite everything that he had done. That some of what he was doing with her could have been manipulative, but it also could have been real. You know?
Well, again, I always keep going back to the scorpion and the frog, because
Yeah.
when the scorpion promises the frog that he won't stab him because he wants to get across the pond, the scorpion probably believes that he
Mm-hmm.
won't,
Mm-hmm.
because to stab the frog will also result in his own undoing, and because he means it at the time,
Yeah.
but he stabs him anyway because it's in his nature, because
Yeah.
that's what he does. And so, yeah, I think that in the
Yeah.
same way that Bittaker probably held tenderness for the pregnant teen girl, in those moments he probably is sincere,
Mm-hmm.
and also in those moments he probably knows that this is power he has over her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, both can be true
Both.
at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
And he probably did think that Laura Brand was his best friend. He left everything to her in
He
his
called
will
her every day.
because he wants human interaction and company. Would he
Yeah.
also kill her when she was no longer pregnant? Probably.
If she pissed him off.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? But this is what is so fascinating about these types of cases, because like the crimes, these things are so unimaginable. The
I
fact
know.
that Bittaker could torture these girls, just these young, helpless girls,
I like it.
and enjoy it, and then want to relive it in this audio tape and photographs.
Ugh.
It's unimaginable
Yep. For most of us.
from
Some of us listening right now might
hopefully
be.
most of us. Hopefully.
We have at least one sadist listening who's like,
Probably. Yeah. This
well,
is
guess what?
wonderful.
I am more likely to be a sucker and fall for the shit. I think I am. But anyway, don't come after me.
But yeah, so it's these things are so unimaginable, but also it is so nuanced, because these are human beings that are doing these things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like listening to that FBI profiler when she was like, and again, it's also as a way to preserve the self. It's like being absolute. This is a
Yes.
monster. This is not a monster.
Right.
This is a monster. That is not a monster. It's like you can be an absolute monster and a human being simultaneously. You can be somebody who has suffered tremendously in your life, had unfair things happen to you, be capable of really wonderful gestures, and at the same time be a complete and total sadist. I think that Laura Brand saw that. I think that she had affection for Bittaker, recognizing that because of these circumstances, because you were behind this glass, because you can't touch me,
Yeah.
because you were going to die in this prison, and we are having this give and take relationship, very like Clarice Starling and Hannibal
Yes.
Lecter, where it's that quid pro quo. Like, she's offering him access to her, her stages of pregnancy, describing all of this stuff. He's enjoying hearing about it for whatever reason. Who knows? If it's a genuine like affection, or if it's just he's starved for human interaction because he was a social person. But I think she understood that this friendship can only exist because of these circumstances. And
Yeah.
she's grateful that he's providing her all the material for her book, you know?
The thing that they talked about in the episode of the consult, which I thought was really, really important that we don't talk about very much, is like how our framing. It's like for most purposes, the framing of like monster, not monster, is like good because like that's all most people need to know. Like
Sure.
just stay away. But it's in a way, it's such a dangerous thing because if you frame like sexual predators or sexual assault people who commit sexual assault as monsters, it it literally makes society less safe because it gets into policy. So like you have somebody, and she used this example, you have somebody, she's like, people can be rehabbed. There are plenty of people who do one sexual assault, and we're seeing that now with DNA technology, right? Like somebody comes up 20 years later, they get busted, and that's the only sexual assault they've ever committed. Some 300, like whatever. So, but if you get out of prison and you are considered in the public's mind a monster, you can't live anywhere. Nobody wants you to live anywhere. So you have to go live under an overpass, which is like going to make you more likely to revert to those behaviors, right? So it's like this very dangerous framing of people as like, I mean, you have to hope that the system's in place, keep the people who should remain in prison, and then the ones that can be rehabilitated. And there are plenty of them. Like there are tons actually of sexual people who commit sexual assault who she gave a statistic and it was really shocking, like that who did never do that again because of the therapies they've had and whatever. So yeah, I don't know. It's like this whole issue of I think it's really, really, and mostly only the people who have to do it are the people who work in the field of psychology. But I think it's really important for people to remember that these people are human. They're no different from us. Like they do different things than most of us would do, but they are no different from us. And like, whatever you want to say about sadism, I don't think it's a thing. Like, I don't think there's a thing called sadism. I think there's like a person who has a whole complex system of meaning. They derive pleasure from other people's pain and they act on that. And I think there are people who could have that potentially and maybe don't act on it.
Well,
But
there's like a
yeah,
spectrum. I mean,
yeah. Or you can learn not to act on it.
sure.
And or you can be put in a situation, you could learn to have a life that makes you more pro-social. And we're far away, it feels like, systemically from really nailing the whole thing of not letting people out who are going to reoffend. I mean, we're not nailing that. You hear all
No.
the time, every day, that like some guy gets out and then what does he do? He goes and stabs 3 people and kills them. Like, so there's a problem there. But in general, I think it's good that we, especially on our podcast, I think we really try and hold that, which is that whole thing of like us, them, like black and white. It's not like, so, and we probably know people who are sex offenders. I know somebody who got busted by the FBI and then killed himself in the holding room. And it was having something to do with the dark web. And he was like
Oh
a
shit.
friend. And it would have,
No
right.
fucking way.
Yeah. And
Oh
nobody
wow.
knows to this day, like what happened, and what it was about. But it was something having to do with like dark web activity and behavior with underage girls.
Holy shit.
So we probably know someone.
Well, dude, I'm in porn, of
Yeah,
course. I
right.
know. I,
You know a lot of someones, maybe. I don't know.
well, yeah. I mean, there are definitely some people who have been arrested and done time and other things. Yeah, we've talked about this. It's a very low bar to entry into sex work. So
Also,
yeah.
therapists, man, like people getting into therapy who may or may not be all that well themselves.
Oh well, yeah, for sure.
Predators.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, we've talked about that where, predators will find their way into places where they can have access to the types of people that they want. That's why you see, predatory like Boy Scout leaders and teachers. Hello, all the fucking teachers.
Disney cruise ship
D-
employees. Did you hear?
of course.
I
Like that.
blew my friend's mind. She's a Disney adult. She didn't even respond to me. I left her a message. I was all, dude, did you hear about the pedophiles? She didn't even respond. I was like, oh, I probably broke her heart.
She probably saw your message and then ran to her special Disney dedicated room to hug all of her Disney characters. She's She's like, I still believe in magic. I still believe.
Oh.
I feel so bad. Yeah, but yeah, but it makes sense. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Absolutely. But what's interesting with Laura Brand is that she said that she could see like the way like she could see the sadism in Bittaker,
Mhm.
that she was able to observe that tendency is deep in him.
Yes. His swipey comments and
Yeah. So I don't think she had any illusions. I'm so excited to read her book because there's only so much that we could get from the documentary.
yeah.
But I guess at one point, so Bittaker had a heart attack at one point. I guess the death knell, right? It was getting
Mhm.
close to the end of his life, and it scared him.
Mhm.
And he's talking to her on the phone, and he's kind of breaking down about how scared he was and how it was like a window into what these girls must have been going through or dealing with. And I want to say that Laura Brand saw that as change, as a softening, I
Mm.
guess, in
Mm.
Bittaker. Again, the FBI profiler was like, nope, nobody, nope. That was
Yeah.
manipulation. That was manipulation.
Yeah.
Maybe a little of both.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe he got scared. Maybe he knew that Laura would appreciate hearing that afforded him some insight. Maybe it did afford him some insight, and it was more interesting to him and less like less of a softening and more of just an observation, and that the
Mhm.
the tears were for himself.
Mhm.
Maybe, you know, that's it's we'll never know really. And then of course he
Mm.
passed. But I agree. I believe that there was I mean, undoubtedly there was a relationship that Laura Brand had with Bittaker. Indeed, I think he was her friend.
Mhm.
Whatever his reasons were for engaging in that relationship,
Mhm.
he probably enjoyed her company. He probably liked her as much as he was able to like anybody.
Mhm.
He probably liked her more than anybody in his life, right?
Mhm.
She was actually it was interesting that she was a woman or is a
Mhm.
woman. She's still alive. It's
Mhm.
interesting she's a woman. And
Mhm.
oh yeah, he asked if he could be the child's uncle or something like
Oh my
that.
god, that was heartbreaking. I just was sitting there just wow, it's so interesting to observe him. So, it's funny, in my training that I'm doing, we were talking about how the ultimate goal or in the end what we hope for, which is not the role of therapy because it's impossible and we don't have that much time with people and that much control over their context, but like ultimately just like radical acceptance is the thing that frees us all in a way. And like how some people get there through cancer, some people get there through therapy or spiritual practice, whatever. I think in a way when his thing hit him, the heart attack, it did kind of, he was able to take another person's perspective. And so he was talking about how what his victims must have felt like. But then that whole uncle thing, it was like you could hear the little rejected boy. He wouldn't assert it. He wouldn't ask. He was hinting. Like I used to babysit kids, and I remember like this baby when I babysit kids, they wouldn't just directly ask, like, "Give me some chips." They'd be like, "Sure would be nice to have some chips right now," like, or like, "I would really be great to have a cookie," just like hinting. And that's kind of how he was. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. Did you, like hinting around it because I think he felt he has such low self worth. I mean, I really could see that in that conversation. Like he wanted so badly for her to think of him that way and to be of value to her, I think. Anyway, so I could see in those moments that little kid that's just nobody loves me.
Do you think this kid could use an uncle at, I don't know, maybe San Quentin?
Does this kid have any uncles in prison? Because I mean, I know somebody who might be interested in being a prison uncle.
If there's still an opening for a prison uncle, I know someone who would happily fill that role. I know you have your choice of serial killers in prison. I don't know if you. I know Norris hasn't talked to you in a while, but I'm
Oh my
just
God.
saying, I could teach the kid a thing or two about, machines.
Jewelry making and
Yeah.
torture.
Yeah.
Oh God, we have to laugh, don't we?
We do. We do. We have to laugh, or else
Sorry if
we'll cry.
anyone. Right. I'm sorry if we're offending anyone, but if you don't have a sense of humor, then you shouldn't listen to our podcast.
But it's going to be so interesting to read this book because I think that there will be a lot more kind of insights that she has, stuff that didn't make it into that documentary. But yeah, so Bittaker died on death row. He was not executed. Norris died a couple months later.
Hmm.
And this case goes down in history as one of the most depraved, most horrifying serial killer cases ever. And it was so distressing.
I'm glad we did it, and I'm glad it's over.
I am too. I am too. When we do these cases, one of the things that really I try to, as a Christian, and we've discussed this, Shannon and I, listeners, have gone around and around talking about like how we feel about capital punishment, how we feel about all of these things. I know that we got into this a little bit with the Athena Strand case, and I think also in the first episode of this. But I try to find compassion because in my prayer practice, I always like compassion and forgiveness are like muscles that you have to consistently exercise. And it's hard to forgive, especially if something really, really, really awful has happened to you. If somebody has hurt you in just in a way that maybe you deem as unforgivable, but you're working on forgiving because you want to get past it. It's like a muscle, and it's a muscle that you have to exercise daily because I don't think that forgiveness is something that's one and done. I think it's a process.
Yeah.
And even in some of my relationships, my relationship with my own mother and stuff, even though she passed, I have to work on forgiveness every single day because, we know that Bittaker and Norris, like so many of, I don't think that there's a single case that we've covered. Well, we're covering a case next where somebody wasn't necessarily, well, I guess it depends on how we frame abuse, but a lot of these killers, these horrible people have suffered a lot in their lives. But there's plenty of people that have suffered. There's people that have suffered horrible, horrible fucking things and they don't go on and commit these crimes. But I can't, I try to understand. It's just part of just wanting to understand more about what it is to be human in all ways. But trying to find compassion. I think Laura Brand found compassion just in her dealings with Bittaker, which was never, I don't think she ever excused anything that he did. And she cried for the victims.
Right. She's not naive. She's like, I know what this is.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't like what you did. You belong in prison and you're still a human. That's
right.
Sort of how she felt like she was holding it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I brought this up, but in Werner Herzog's documentary Into the Abyss, when he tells Michael Perry that he's like, I don't have to like you, like that's not what this is about. I don't have to like you to not recognize that in spite of everything, your life, your human life is still valuable.
Yes.
The fundamentally just life without anything attached to it, life is valuable.
Yes. You have to you'll love this episode. I can't wait to listen to it. That consult. She's like, what I really believe is like, we need empathy and we need accountability and we need those two things. And we can have that.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. Oh, look, Bruno's like, Athova.
Bruno. Hi, Bruni.
Hello. Hello, Shannon.
Oh, look at his cute little smushed in face.
I got something to say about this case. I don't like those fellas. I'm gonna gnaw their fucking faces off. Well, they're already dead, Bruno. Oh, okay, good. I'm so glad to hear it. Okay, good. That's one last thing for me to have to do today. I'm busy. Oh my goodness.
I don't like those fellas. All right. Bye.
We'll see you guys on our next episode. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.